You guys see Hasan went to Yale?
Just want to start off by thanking everybody for allowing me to come to Yale University today and be able to deliver a speech on one of my favorite subjects, U.S. empire. I know that it was quite contentious, it seems, that there were a lot of people that didn't want me to come here today and speak to all of you. That's right. I know what that means now. I want to start off by thanking the Yale Union.
Where you could be if you locked in. I've never been invited to Yale, but I've been invited to give speeches by a couple of high-profile university unions. I just haven't accepted yet.
I'm especially sad that Senator Rick Scott couldn't make it. I'm sure he had many opinions on whether or not we should end the U.S. empire and the global capitalist system, which is what I will be talking about today. And then your grandparents are probably going to hear about it on Fox News tomorrow.
Nuts, that is fucked up.
The fall of the USSR was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century. Just wait, listen, maybe you'll agree.
So wait, so the hissing means they disagree with him, or are they booing the U.S.? Who are they booing?
Not only was there incalculable harm done to every single country under its banner, child prostitution, skyrocketing suicide rates, life expectancy plummeting. But America was no longer contested around the globe. And it is precisely because of the end to that multipolarity that we saw accelerated neoliberalism that is devastating every Western nation right now. Unlimited and unchecked greed.
I mean, he's objectively correct on this, like very, very, very measurably. The decline and fall of the Soviet Union, like the beginning of the Reagan era, marked the very, very rapid implementation of deregulatory and neoliberal policies that have gutted out and financialized the Western world. Yeah, it happened very, very quickly in former Soviet bloc countries like, Ukraine and Poland and Russia. But in the United States and elsewhere, it's been happening quite quickly as well. Yeah. Just the end of like foreign pressure led to a significant increase in the speed at which the worst elements of capitalism took root. So we're ignoring what he said at the beginning. What did he say at the beginning? What am I ignoring? Does anyone dispute this? A ton of people dispute this. The audience is not wrong. Fuck the USSR. It's not a statement on whether or not the USSR was good or bad. It's a statement that the death of the USSR has been an overall net negative for the world, which is true. Like, is America not bad? I don't understand. Like, it's a power vacuum, right? Somebody has to rule the world. In the absence of the Soviet Union, it became us. We became the rulers of the world. Recently, China's had their own, like, rise in regional hegemony. Not just regional, but it's really a matter of whether it's a unipolar or a multipolar control. And the multipolarity did, to some extent, compel America to be a little bit more responsible. So was the Cold War better? Millions of deaths from proxy wars? I mean, war has continued, no? It's only going to get worse from here. That's kind of the point, right? The end of the Cold War has led to a temporary increase in the passivity of the world, but I think that's ending. And it's ending in large part because an end to that multipolarity has allowed states like America and Israel to engage in behavior that dismantles this peacetime era. The global rules-based order only really functions if its rulers and orchestrators play into it fairly. And now that we're not, this peacetime is coming to an end. The world is only going to get more violent over the rest of our lives, especially because of climate change. That's going to be a big factor, for sure, for sure. Of course, the Cold War did cause many deaths in proxy conflicts, but that doesn't really defeat the position held, which is that the USSR kept some kind of check on America. A lot of America's great advances internally were motivated by external pressure, right? From the Civil Rights Act to a number of pro-labor regulations to some of our dealings with the rest of the world. Anyway, it's only getting worse now. It's the end of the world. Why quote Putin? Who's quoted Putin?
Our successes are leading to our own demise and the demise and collapse of the liberal system.
So you're saying it would be better if Russia didn't collapse? If the Soviet Union didn't collapse, yeah. Why the U-turn from your previous position? I'm not sure what you mean. What previous... Say... I don't want any referential language in chat today. If you're referring to a thing, you have to explicitly describe the thing. I don't want any articles, pronouns, or referential terminology. I just want the substance of the statement, please.
The U.S. has produced disaster after disaster after disaster.
That's also true, yeah.
And I'm not just saying that so that I have an upper hand in this conversation.
The existence of the USSR legitimized Republican fearmongering? For one, no, it didn't. And for two, the Republican fearmongering has continued unabated in the absence of the USSR because we decided to name China the new existential threat, even though at the time China was our ally and really had no beef with us. Around the turn of the millennium, we decided very arbitrarily that China would be the new big global threat to point to and justify our military spending off of. And we have, and it's been 25 years, and we've just kept doing it. There's no reason for us to do it, but we've done it anyway. They were not a threat to us. Like, China was an unambiguous ally of the United States. We cooperated, we traded freely, our politicians were on reasonably good terms, and we just decided to make China an enemy because we needed a foreign threat.
No matter what we say here, American empire is going to inevitably fall. But
I agree with you, but you've clearly shifted in multipolarity. I think it's, I agree that I have. I think the reason that I have is because I've come to believe that fascism is no longer the big threat. It's neoliberalism, because fascism can't exist anymore. If you believe that the rise in global fascism is the real threat, then you might believe that the end of multipolarity is a good thing. But if you believe that neoliberalism and neoliberal capital acquisition is the big threat, as I now do, you might believe that the collapse of the Soviet Union was definitely the bad thing. Fascism can't happen anymore for the same reason that socialism can't. It's an antiquated ideology. Everything is subsumed by global capital. And if you think that global deprivation is the real threat, I think that, like, the Soviet Union collapsing was the worst thing imaginable. It opened up like a third of the world to foreign markets. It meant that there was no longer any external pressure. It was, the dialectic has advanced. That's 100% true. It's not a meme, yeah. It's very bad, yeah. Are you even a socialist then? Of course I am. That rhetoric's very fatalist. It's materialist. How do you maintain principles and ethics if you decide those things only matter within your sphere of influence bubble? I'm not sure. What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean by antiquated ideology? That the fascism and socialism that we refer to are products of a material economy that no longer exists. Fascism and socialism, as we refer to them, existed in a pre-globalized economy. Both the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were able to do what they did because they had a domestic economy. Their production, their trade, almost all of it was contained within their country. There was still international trade, but nothing like today. Today is very different. Do you still believe in socialism then? Yeah, just not in the socialism of like the 1940s. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, I don't believe in the socialism of, like, you know, ooh-rah, red beret, the people working, you know, proletarian dictatorship, blah, blah, blah. This is language and it's ideology rooted in an older economy. The world is very different now. We have to adapt. The fascists have to as well, but they can't, because fascism requires servility to the state, and nobody is willing to be servile to the state because people have become too comfortable, too attached to their own lives. And national economic development is almost impossible now. Even the wealthiest countries in the world are completely reliant on global trade. Servility to the state and national production, without those, how do you do fascism? You can't. You can do neoliberalism. You can do neoconservatism. Fascists in Italy, what did they end up doing? Neoconservatism. Fascists in Germany, the AfD, what are they going to end up doing when they take charge? Neoconservatism. Reform in Germany, neoconservatism. The fascists in France, neoconservatism. That's all anyone can ever do anymore, neoconservatism. Even the fascists over in Russia can barely manage to conscript their own people. They're terrified. They don't have that same level of expected servility to the state. The average Russian is not as willing to die for their country as the average Red Army soldier or the average Wehrmacht soldier was back in the 1930s. Everything is different now. So Ronald Reagan ended the world? Yeah, in a way. Well, no, I don't want to do great man theory bullshit. Ronald Reagan presided over the economic developments that would lead to the end of the world. It's really just a matter of, like, waiting for these systems to break of their own accord until something else can be done. Neoliberalism and global free trade are based on a set of political and material assumptions that will not last forever. For example, open and free seas. As we've seen, blocking of the Suez Canal, of the Persian Gulf, and general instability around coastal countries in certain areas of the world, like the Cape of Africa, or basically anything around the Middle East. These lead to enormous disruptions in free trade that make it incredibly difficult for global trade to take place on the terms that we've established, the razor-thin profit margins that we rely on. These systems are not very sustainable. They're very fragile. They're very prone to breaking. So if they break, and they will break, and they have broken to an extent, and they will continue to break, as they break, the presumptions will stop lining up, and things will change. I don't know how they're going to change, but I think it's reasonable to assume that things are going to get much worse very quickly. So will real fascism become possible after that? I don't think you understand. We're not waiting it out until real fascism happens again. The neoliberalism will be what kills 4 billion people. When global drought and starvation and war and climate migration really kick in, it will be neoliberalism presiding over the bad decisions that follow, not fascism. It will rack up the highest death toll of any ideology in human history very quickly. Though people won't name it neoliberalism. They'll call it this or that. It'll be named in regional movements, xenophobia. But at the end of the day, the logic that dictates these behaviors will be based on global capital, in my opinion.
I think, as Mao Zedong himself said earlier, there is a power.
This is a thing that I don't like. Mao is irrelevant ideologically in the modern day for the same reason that Adolf Hitler is, you know? There is no, Mao was a guerrilla warfare leader who tried to get peasants to make pig iron. It's not relevant to the way our economy develops today. It's not, he's just he's a guy with a very large death toll. I just don't think we should be attaching our analysis of the world to a guy who was, stupid and a pedophile. Well, he's good at guerrilla warfare, but he wasn't really good at running his country. You know what I mean? I just don't really know what my ideology has to do with him. Isn't fascism just a tool of capital, though? Yeah, but tools can vary in their usefulness depending on the age. I think we have to focus on what's ahead of us right now, okay? We have to focus on the neoliberalism. The neoliberalism is the threat right now. That's the big threat. That's the big problem we're dealing with right now. The fascists took charge, and what have they done? Genuinely, what has the Trump administration done other than accelerate the negative tendencies of the pre-existing economic system? ICE has abducted people? Great, they were already doing that. Our civil liberties have been eroded? That was already happening. Under the same Supreme Court, with the same people in Congress, more or less. With the Democrats in charge too, the Patriot Act, all of the fucking foreign surveillance that they re-up year after year without even congressional debate, all of the underlying bad things, they're still happening. Trump is just doing them worse. He's just an idiot. But they're happening everywhere. It's all the same shit, man.
Power within the American people to change the nature of this decline. Potential of people living in the periphery.
The Patriot Act took an external force to kickstart it. The Patriot Act would have happened no matter what. I guarantee you. Bush or Gore, 9/11 or no, the Patriot Act or some equivalent of it would have happened no matter what. It is a prerequisite of the modern police state.
This is something that I saw personally when I visited Cuba recently.
It's insufferable. Isn't there another speaker here?
My statements are more so a warning for people. And like I mentioned, I want to manage this decline, and I want to move into the next phase of American development before it gets so totally out of hand that we see something as devastating, God forbid, as like a nuclear holocaust or something. Because if the current economic organization of the American society persists, then...
Are you not afraid you're being overly pessimistic with the whole it's inevitable all this bad stuff will happen rant? I don't think it's pessimism if you think it's going to play out that way. Pessimism and optimism are about how you approach the world, not about what you think are going to happen. You can argue I feel like maybe I'm a bit cynical. I don't think that I am. And I also don't think what I'm describing is all that bad. It's just a matter of managing the conditions of decline. But the decline is happening no matter what. There's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. Do you have a way of uprooting global capital in a way that doesn't cause mass famine globally? Do you even know what that would involve? The average internet socialist has no idea how the economy works and has no idea what they could even do to implement changes to that economy without breaking everything. They have no clue. It's beyond them, utterly beyond them. It's difficult. I don't want to sound conceited, but like even a basic amount, like just a very, very basic education on global trade, just how it works, very basic on how it works, would eradicate 99% of the optimistic positions that internet lefties hold. All the things you think you can do in America if you took charge, you can't. You have no power. Because the whole point of global capital is that the real orchestrators of social development are global capitalists. Bankers and financiers and corporate CEOs and shareholders, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who in a decentralized network manage the flow of resources that allow countries to function. As an individual leader, even as the President of the United States, your ability to affect these outcomes is pretty minimal. And anything you do to meaningfully disrupt that system will not only be met with unbelievable opposition, domestically and from foreign countries, because again, you're working against the world here, but in all likelihood, it would cause mass famine within your own country. I mean, you would disrupt things for everyone. You would be considered an enemy of the world. There's no version of this transformative action that could take place that would not lead to global repercussions comparable to what Trump is doing right now with Iran, with the Strait of Hormuz. It's just not possible. What we need to do is wait for some of these contradictions to mount up on their own, and we need to be ready for that. And if you need to, if you understand those stakes and you understand when this is going to take place and how it's going to go down, then I think that you can be better positioned for it. I think that there's a lot of harm being done to young socialists when you give them this pap about how, like, the right person will do this or that. They won't. But you can position yourselves, you can get ready. You can cushion the blow. You can, try to position yourself in a way that makes it easier to manage down the line. I like to think we can focus on building a movement towards dismantling this economic system where mass global famine ensues if food prices go up, and I think a lot of this starts at home first rather than globally. Well, yeah, that's what I mean by preparing people. Yeah. The more people are aware of what's leading to this global decline, I think the more ready people will be. And that's why I focus so much on intersectionality and like a multidisciplinary criticism of society. The reason why Israel is bombing Lebanon is the same reason why your shitty apartment looks like ass. It's the same reason why your apartment probably looks worse than an apartment looked 100 years ago in New York City. It genuinely looks worse. Probably isn't as dirty, but in terms of its aesthetic proportioning, it just looks like a box compared to what people used to live in. There's a lot of stuff that's gotten worse, and all of it ultimately comes down to capital and financialization, but these are the same problems. People think they're irrelevant. The reason our clothes are bad, the reason our houses look bad, the reason our streets are too wide, the reason all cars look the same, everything comes back to the same fundamental problems, the fundamental incentive structure. So it's important to understand all of it. People need to know why things have gotten bad. The reason your house is expensive is the same reason why when you go on YouTube and you look up a tutorial on how to draw, a bunch of them are AI. It's the same reason why politicians don't answer questions directly. Everything is the same. Everything is affected by the same incentive structure. It didn't used to be because global capitalism didn't used to control every element of everyone's lives, but now it does. So now we have to pay attention. There are no disconnected issues. Everything everywhere is the same, in every country, for every human. So it's important to focus on all of it. It's not an abstract economic problem that only needs to be managed by, people up there or whatever. Everyone needs to get involved. Everyone needs to be bitter in the correct direction. Bosch isn't saying nothing would change if Bernie was president. He's saying that the fundamental system would not change. Bernie Sanders would not be able to change what is happening, not fundamentally. But I do think that he would probably be able to seed in the American people a better understanding of why what is happening if he was able to play his cards right. The worst case scenario would be that Bernie might have won and become president, but then unable to do anything meaningful, he would have just disillusion people. That would be quite bad, Mamdani, so far, thankfully, is doing quite well. And thankfully, as a mayor, a lot of your decision-making isn't really down to decisions that involve global capital. As a mayor, you are local enough that you can have a lot more relative pull in your environment, which is one of the reasons why it's important to focus on local politics as well. Even in a city like New York City, right, which is center of global finance, you can still do quite a bit of good. So if Mamdani ran for president, we should oppose him because he would hurt socialism? No, and I think that you're engaging with what I'm saying at a very low level. I would encourage you to engage with it at a higher level.
The income inequality that we're facing is only going to worsen as wealth just stays at the top of society, and people who are from a working class background have a horrible end of that bargain, and their material conditions deteriorate even further, also accelerated by climate change too. So what I want to do is try to organize against that and to ensure that we have the most peaceful transition possible so that we don't, so that we stop starving the potential of the masses here in the United States of America as well as elsewhere around the world.
And with that, yes, thanks.
American empire being a far better.
What is certainly the right direction. We are moving in the direction of civil rights. The last half century has proven exactly that. And so while I'll be the first to concede that America is not perfect, especially on race, especially when dealing with immigrants, we are not an ethno-nationalist empire.
Further questions for the gentleman?
The guest.
What's the format? How do I say for the speaker? Is that how you
Just ask the question.
Okay, all right, never mind. Just wanted to abide by tradition. It's been around. For the gentleman. You have somewhat of a deeply cynical, I would say, worldview about how power is supposed to continue. You did bring up an example in apartheid South Africa where the people were able to achieve liberal democracy to a certain degree. There were issues, and there's still issues in South Africa.
South Africa is actually a phenomenal example because the country has in many respects gotten much worse since the end of apartheid. Because when white people were dethroned and not allowed to single-handedly rule the entire country, they took a lot of their money and power with them. Even as rights were equalized, the economic rights of the whites were preserved, and as a consequence, the inequality in South Africa is driving the country to ruin. Like, South Africa is nearly a failing state. It is falling apart. And that's because you might have legally allocated power equally between black and white people, but white people, you know, they kept the damn bag. And with all the money and all the expertise and all the institutional authority, which they still have, you actually created a worse situation. In other words, like, apartheid South Africa was evil, but it was actually more stable than what they have now, which is a continuation of South African apartheid, not not de jure, but de facto, essentially, where, like, even if legally everyone has the same rights, in practice, white people have everything. How could they have fixed South Africa? Mass wealth reallocation, like overwhelming state power, taking and redistributing enormous amounts of wealth. It was the only way they could have done it. But what you did instead was you created basically the same situation that America had after the end of slavery, which is a bunch of former black black former slaves. They just became like sharecroppers. Like, they didn't know how to read or write that well. They couldn't work factory jobs because people up north were racist as fuck. So they were like, well, what do I know? What do I know how to do? You know? Well, I know how to farm. But slavery's done. What do I do? Oh, well, I'll just enter into this economic contract that basically makes me a slave again. Without addressing the underlying economic inequality, you don't actually fix the problem. And to this day, in much of the American South, the average black family has significantly less household wealth than the average white family. My dad sharecropped Vosh in the 1960s. Yeah, sharecropping continued. It continued all the way up through and then past the signing of the Civil Rights Act. In many parts of the South today, they basically still live in settlement proportioning comparable to the sharecropping days. I mean, you have like very poor black communities where there's basically no hope, no economic prospects. It's pretty bad. It's very, very bad. South Africa is faring way better than Vosh says, though. South Africa is faring very badly right now. Very badly. South Africa is doing miserably right now. Wouldn't go that far. You can use whatever language you prefer. The point is the same. South Africa might be more politically liberal now. Liberalism prevailed in that respect. But without addressing the underlying economic inequality, what meaningfully changed? Do you think the average black person in South Africa feels more free than they would have back in 1990? Oh, they can cast a vote now. How lovely. What has changed? Without addressing the underlying economic reality, a lot of political liberalism is, I wouldn't say meaningless, but it's not super meaningful.
Do you think that the abolition of U.S. empire would create a power vacuum that creates...
And Zimbabwe expropriated white farmers and also went to shit? A lot of things went wrong with Zimbabwe, okay? I'm not claiming they're I'm not a Mugabe supporter, all right? I'm not going to claim his legacy. Yeah, a lot of things went wrong with Zimbabwe, but I don't really think that speaks to what happened in South Africa necessarily. Not all companies benefit from financialization. Could the left get them to lobby to eliminate? Are you asking if we could get Walmart to destroy one of the pegs of global capitalism? The answer is no. Walmart is not a single entity. Walmart as a business might not rely on financialization to the same extent as many other places, but no, for a million reasons, that will never, ever, ever happen. It is in their class interest not to. Also, keep in mind that even if the business of Walmart doesn't rely as much on financialization, the shareholders of Walmart absolutely do. And they are the ones who make the decisions. Airlines might run on razor-thin profit margins. But what do you think the people who own the airlines are worth? Do you have any idea on how we as a society could lessen the influence of global? You people can't even take your trash out. You let the trash in the kitchen pile up until the banana peels are touching the lid of the trash. Focus on your own damn problems, okay?